Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Two new marijuana initiatives in Oregon say support for their cause is growing. Initiatives 21 and 22 aim to legalize growing and using pot in Oregon, along with creating a tax law to regulate the sale and bring in revenue for the state. KPTV's Jamie Wilson joins us live from the Fox 12 Mobile Newsroom with the story. Jamie.
Well, Shauna, measures like this have been voted down in the past in Oregon, but after similar laws passed within the last year in Washington and Colorado, local supporters think the next time around could be the right time. Two local groups are currently working to gather support for these initiatives. They are the Campaign for the Restoration and Regulation of Hemp and Help End Marijuana Prohibition in Oregon. Group leaders say they recently gathered 5,000 signatures at the Hempstock Festival for Initiatives 21 and 22. Initiative 21 seeks to amend the Oregon Constitution by ending criminal penalties for adult use and cultivation of marijuana. 22 seeks to create tax regulations for the sale of pot that could generate state revenue for schools, roads, and social services. Organizers believe there is enough support in Oregon, and now they just have to get the votes.
We know that people on the day after November election last year, they were going, why didn't it happen here? That happened in Washington and Colorado, but we thought it was going to happen. So, they're really out there in force helping us now.
And supporters tell me they're hoping to gather enough signatures by early next year to get the initiatives on the November ballot next fall. Live from the mobile newsroom tonight, Jamie Wilson, the 5 o'clock news.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and I urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act to regulate marijuana and restore industrial hemp. This initiative will end adult marijuana prohibition and let our criminal justice officers focus limited resources on real criminals and not on marijuana users like me. OCTA will also allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food to create jobs and help our economy. Please support OCTA. Thank you.
Think about hemp, industrial hemp. See, I think that the medical marijuana movement will get a lot further if they will reach out and help explain the realities of hemp, the larger issue of hemp. Hemp, medical marijuana. Hemp helps everybody. Hemp helps the earth. Hemp is earth medicine. And I don't see enough awareness being given to hemp as hemp. We're too busy using the medical marijuana for our own enjoyment and to help heal the pain and these different things. But we're ignoring hemp. Hemp will help the planet. Practical reality, if we're going to talk about medicine, all right, we're talking about medical marijuana as medicine for the people, but hemp is medicine for the earth. And if we forget the earth, then we're only going halfway there. Anyway, that's just some attitude. Hemp. Industrial hemp. You can build your home out of it. You can make clothes out of it. And hemp, the CBDs in hemp, all right, are a larger they serve a larger medicinal purpose for the human body than even the THC does. And people need to kind of look at this. Because we're talking about diabetes, we're talking about epilepsy, we're talking about cancer. It's very effective against breast cancer. All right, we're talking about a real deal here, but nobody's paying any attention to it. All the attention is being put to the THC aspect, and I think it's time to recognize the entire plant. For the earth, for us.
When's everybody gonna learn? unless you're caught up in that lie, that same old lie. War's over, obsolete, so let's all get together and get high. Thousands upon thousands, them will lie dead. These words just did not sink in their head. So many give, so many more than take. Until it's up and turn off, it just have to beg. War's over, when's everybody gonna learn? War's over, until then we burn. War's over, unless you're caught up in a lie, that same old lie. War's over, for God's sake, let's all get high. So what about it? Think you heard the story yet? You're going to help to change this world or add to the debt. I'm getting way deep concerned, Lord, you know it ain't no lie. We need to come together soon or we all bound to cry. War's over, don't you be acting dumb. War's over, 'cause there ain't nowhere to run. War's over, the drug war's over, don't be caught up in no lie. That war's over, so hey, let's all get high.
to celebrate hemp and cannabis. And we're also happy to announce the launch of the campaign to put this thing back on the ballot. Last November, we got 47% of the vote statewide, 61% right here in Multnomah County, 63% in Portland. So Portland loves cannabis. We might as well just take the R out of Portland right now. But, you know, we just launched, we got approval yesterday afternoon at 4:45 to circulate our petition to legalize marijuana. And we have two petitions. One is a statutory measure, that's a law, and the other one's a constitutional amendment. So it says, our constitutional amendment basically says that you can possess, use, and grow marijuana, and the state can enact laws to regulate the sale of marijuana to adults. And then the statutory measure is almost exactly like Measure 80 last year, with a couple of changes to make our opposition's arguments disappear to a certain degree. You know, it looks possible at this stage that next February, our Oregon legislature will put a bill out there and refer a bill to regulate marijuana to the people. But if they don't, then we've got two initiatives ready to go. If the legislature puts a bill out there, we will stop our statutory measure and just move forward with our constitutional one. But we can't, you know, we're trying to put pressure on them to act, and maybe they will. And several legislators have said they want to, but so far, we don't have any guarantees. But we have a guarantee that if we get over 82,000 valid Oregon voter signatures, we can put that statutory measure on the ballot again. And if we get over 116,000 signatures, then we can put the constitutional amendment on the ballot. So we're trying to make the people of our state vote twice to legalize marijuana in 2014. If the legislature doesn't do it, we will.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, for me, hemp, cannabis, marijuana are really the same thing. Late great friend of mine, Kentucky Attorney Gatewood Galbraith, named the people who were really responsible for this, and it's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, fascist sons of a bitches. And they sold us that there was a deadly new drug called marijuana. And it was based on this anti-Hispanic racism that they used this word, marijuana. If they'd said hemp, they never would have been able to criminalize it. So, you know, they created this to protect the petrochemical and wood fiber industries. And so they said it was a deadly new drug, but really it's the oldest crop known to man. All archaeologists agree that marijuana has been cultivated at least 12,000 years and maybe over 30,000 years. You know, the first agricultural crop, it might be the very reason that our ancestors gave up the hunter-gatherer way of life and started planting plants so they could have a stash. And they could have, you know, they found frozen remains and tombs where the people are buried or die carrying their herb with them, the same way I will be found carrying my herb with me. But the truth of the matter is that it's really about fuel and fiber. The drugs are just a smokescreen. It's really about money, power, and the continued centralization of economic and political control. So our initiatives are out there, and we need you to get involved. Go right over to the booth with the American flags. Sign that petition, please. If you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. We've got to register and vote and take this system back. And the more of us that register, the sooner that will happen. I also want to thank all our vendors out there who come out here and made this all possible. We ran into a lot of roadblocks. It cost us a lot of money at the last minute. The city actually came forward and required that we hire 30 additional security people. They told us last week. They also said we have to pay $4,000 plus dollars for a parking patrol to give us tickets out on the street. They basically dropped $30,000 worth of bills on us the last minute, trying to say, if you don't do it, no permit. Well, we did it. You know, we put it together. But, you know, I just want you to know it takes a lot of volunteer effort, a lot of volunteer work, and as several people have said from this stage, freedom isn't free. It's constantly being assaulted, and it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Right now, we're seeing some steps forward. The votes in Washington and Colorado have changed the whole dynamic. You know, we got 47% of the vote last November, but recent polls have shown that the support for cannabis legalization now is up over 63%. So we put something on the ballot, they know we're going to win next time. People are educated. So help us do that. Get involved, register to vote, help us circulate this petition, and help us restore hemp. Thank you.
Oh. We're going to do a song tonight by a group called Show of Hands. And this goes out to all the people who, you know, what he said. We didn't see that, I'm sorry. This goes out to all the people who put greed over people. And it's called Arrogance, Ignorance, and Greed.
All I wanted was a home and a roof over our heads, somewhere we could call our own, feel safer in our beds. There was a storm of money raining down, it only touched the ground. With the loan I took, I can't repay, and the crock of gold you found. At every trough you stop to feed, with your arrogance, your ignorance, and greed. I never was a cautious girl, I spend more than I'm paid. But those with something put aside are the ones that you betray. With your bonuses and expenses, you shoveled down your throats. You bit the hands that fed you, and God, I hope you choke. At every trough you stop to feed, with your arrogance, your ignorance, and greed. You're on your yacht, we're on our knees, with your arrogance, your ignorance, and greed. The toxins bring you touch and soul, you poison every watering hole. Your poverty you exchange for gold. Working man stands in line, the market sets his price. No feather bed, no golden egg, no one pays him twice. So where's your thrift and caution, your honest good advice? You dealt yourself a winning hand and loaded every dice. At every trough you stop to feed, your arrogance, your ignorance, and greed. I pray someday we'll soon be free from your absolute indifference, your avarice, incompetence, your arrogance, your ignorance, and your greed.
In Capital News. news, an Oregon lawmaker says he wants to beat marijuana activists to the punch. KVAL's Tom Adams explains what a Eugene State representative has in mind for next year.
Eugene's Phil Barnhart says if marijuana legalization is going to happen, the best bet, he says, is an initiative from the state legislature. The Eugene Democrat thinks marijuana legalization is inevitable, given the passage of laws last year in Washington and Colorado. So what should happen in Oregon?
I think the legislature needs to take charge of it. We need to run out a measure to the people in November.
He's talking November 2014. Barnhart says he wants a conservative program to tightly regulate marijuana growing, its sale and distribution.
Set up a system of distribution that's very well controlled so that we can destroy the criminal gangs that sell it now.
Well, Barnhart says all the details still have to be fleshed out, but he thinks one state agency could be in charge of a state-run legal pot operation. The liquor stores run by the OLCC.
And we've already got the distribution system in place. It's not going to cost us any money to set that up.
If you have an OLCC place that sells it and it's regulated through the state, what's on the shelf? What is it going to look like? Who's going to regulate that?
Attorney Brian Michael says the marijuana community wants to work with the lawmakers, but adds if their measure is too restrictive,
then we will have an initiative on the ballot and we will politic against theirs and in favor of ours.
Which Barnhart fears will mean big trouble if marijuana activists run the show.
I'm confident that if we do, it will pass, because I think that an initiative will pass if we don't.
Oregon voters rejected ballot measure 80 last year that would have legalized marijuana. Michaels tells me activists are working on a more moderate version of that bill.
KVAL News is committed to fair and accurate coverage. Let us know if we missed a side of the story. Give us a call or send a message through email, Facebook, or Twitter.
You know that I just got the word they got these new initiatives coming out to legalize marijuana in the state of Oregon. I think that's a good thing. I think that all of you should do that. And the reason I think that is because if you don't, you know they're going to legalize it anyway. Do you want the legislature to legalize it for you and make all the rules, or do you want to make the rules yourselves by legalizing it yourselves? See, that's kind of the difference. So, you know, I mean, you can, you know, keep sitting back and waiting, but really there's something that's got to get done. And you know, we don't want to be, you know, late on the history of this thing. Oregon's right in the middle. You know, California and Oregon are the next states to legalize, I do believe. And it's time for us to do that. So if you look back right across from the main stage here, there's the THC clinic back there. There's a, so what, where is it?
The CRH right there.
Okay, all right. Right over here is the paperwork on this new initiative stuff. You know, and if you want to register to vote, as I think you ought to, I'm not asking you to vote for president or none of that, but you know, you can control your neighborhood. And the way you do it is that you control your neighborhood through your vote locally. So the initiative process is, that's how we're doing it. That's how it happened in Washington, that's how it happens in Colorado, that's how it's going to happen right here. But really, you know, we got to get involved. You know, and there's a reason for it. There's too many people in prison. There's too many people in jail. You know, because that's what's morally wrong about the whole thing. You know, I'd like to, yeah, maybe I'd like to sit back and make all kind of money selling herb or something. But that isn't the way it works. You know, the way it works is that we got a bunch of people in prison for thinking that way. And it's time for the thing to change. We need to get the bars opened up, let everybody out of there. Because, you know, we do need jail. We need it for criminals. You know? Rapists, murderers, thieves, you know, they're out there. That's enough to keep the cops busy right there. See, they don't need to be chasing us. They don't need to be chasing you. So all you youth especially, man, hear my message. You know, step up, register to vote, and change our local rules a little bit by legalizing marijuana in Oregon. You see, there's more than one thing. There's also a constitutional amendment. You see, there's a couple of different things going on right now. You got to look at that, and you can vote on that. You know, a constitutional amendment that means that nobody's going to go to jail for this anymore, and I think it's an important thing.
We've been putting up with people going to jails and prisons for 1, 2, 10, 5, 20 years for marijuana. It's got to end. It's an outrage. It's an injustice. We are not a threat. We're Americans. We're peaceful. We're nonviolent. And you know what's happening today at Seattle Hemp Fest? The police are handing out bags of Doritos. We're winning! We are winning this war on us. And we might be living in this oasis called Seattle, but somebody, while Hemp Fest is going on, somebody's life changed today. Somebody had that cop car behind their car today, somewhere in America. They had their doors kicked in today, somewhere in America. They had the handcuffs go on today, somewhere in America. Their life will never be different. Their family might be broken up. They might lose their marriage. They might lose their home. They might have their kids taken away. They might be put in jails and prisons like a common criminal, when all they've done is kick back and enjoy some music and watch some tunes and watch the TV and hang out and feel good and relaxed, while other people smoke cigarettes into the cancer wards and drink alcohol into the detox center. No one's ever died in 5,000 years of smoking marijuana. No one's ever overdosed. No one's ever had a toxic reaction. No one's ever had DTs. No one's ever had their brain fried or their liver destroyed. No one's ever gotten lung cancer from marijuana, despite the lies. Despite the lies. And we're winning. It's so beautiful to see this beautiful community and culture here for the first time able to celebrate a serious win. Measure 64 in Colorado, I-502 in Washington State. Ground-breaking, potentially game-changing events. All of our lives we lived under this meme, this prevailing myth that marijuana prohibition is an iron curtain. It's here to stay. There's nothing you can do about it. It's never going away. Well, we've just blown that right out of the water. We know that's not true. We know that prohibition is more like a brick wall. And we took a few bricks out. You take another couple bricks out and the right couple bricks out, the whole thing is going to come tumbling down. It's not about if it's going to happen. Now it's about when it's going to happen, because we're going to win this thing. And if we have to come back and do another 100 Seattle Hemp Fest, if our great-grandchildren have to do this and bear this weight and this load and this responsibility, this stress and anxiety to throw a Seattle Hemp Fest into Urban Center in one of the most beautiful series of parks right on the Puget Sound, in one of the gems right in view of the Space Needle, if we've got to continue to do this, whatever it takes necessary to win our freedom and our equality and our justice, we're going to do it. And it just feels so good to be able to stand up here with all of these great speakers and activists and performers, bands and DJs, vendors and sponsors and volunteers, and this incredible, beautiful audience that's kept Hemp Fest violence-free for 21 years. So beautiful. Such a beautiful statement of unity and community, of power. You know, Hemp Fest is an act of love for all of us volunteers, because we love this crowd and this community so much. It's a leap of faith every year, praying nothing goes wrong. Nobody jaywalks and gets hit by a car, or nobody falls on the rocks or drowns in the water, or walks across the railroad tracks and gets hurt. The last thing we want is for anybody to get hurt at Seattle Hemp Fest. So thanks for keeping it irie, being responsible, keeping yourselves safe. Stay hydrated. High and hydrated.
I'm not one for trying to find new ways to do something that has already been done. And what I mean by that, we were here once before with alcohol prohibition. And for instance, The Last Call, a book by Daniel Krent, you know, in reading that and looking at how alcohol prohibition came to an end and the groups that were involved and how they went about doing it, you know, the mothers that came forward, you know, protecting their children. We have a similar thing today. There are many Islamics and many different groups, many different perspectives, many different reasons for being here at the table to end prohibition of marijuana. And we have to ensure that we are working well together, a well-oiled machine, because a lot has to be done. A lot has to be done politically. At the end of the day, what we want to do is to remove marijuana from a Schedule I category. And in my opinion, remove it from the scheduling system altogether. And, you know, so how does that happen? You know, I'm not going to, you know, reiterate what Dominic already talked about, but how does that happen? How do we do that? All right, we have two states right now, right here in Washington and Colorado, who have begun to move. There are 48 other states that are going to move in a similar direction. The question is, how will they do it and how quickly will they do it? One of the things that I think is important, as many of us here are from other parts of the country, is that we have to connect the dots. We have to go back to our states. We have to talk about this, yes, at the kitchen tables and in our own individual circles, but we have to make those connections to the people who would be responsible in our home states for doing what's happening here. The city attorneys, for instance, I'm from Maryland, in Baltimore. I want to give some examples here. In Baltimore, where the city attorney is Mr. Bernstein. You know, I know Mr. Bernstein and I know Pete Holmes here. It's my responsibility to connect those two people so that they can begin a dialogue, so that Mr. Bernstein can learn from Pete Holmes as to what's happening in Seattle. What differences are being made? How's that occurring? Who needs to be involved? City council members, connecting those folks as well. Doctors from Maryland need to be speaking with doctors here in Washington. The Liquor Control Board folks need to be communicating from Maryland to Washington State and Colorado. You know, however it's being done. And I think that's an important piece of it, because I know people are in other states, just people who have the power to make things happen in it. They're wondering, so what's going on out there in Washington State? And they're developing their own perspectives about what is happening in Washington State and Colorado. We can't allow them to do that. We can't allow them to create myths and rumors and innuendo and monsters. We need to show them what's happening here and that the sky is not falling in Washington State. You know, so those are just some examples. Currently, we have momentum in what's occurring with marijuana policy reform in this country, and we cannot afford to lose it. The only way that we can lose it, in my opinion, is if we don't work together as a team in making this happen. And I'm going to continue to say this every time I have an opportunity, because in the past I've seen infighting among all of us that want to legalize marijuana, that want to remove it from the scheduling system. And we have to get beyond our own individual differences. We have to leave that baggage outside. You can pick it up when you leave, when we're all done, when we end prohibition of marijuana. You can pick it up and carry it around again if you want, but for this moment, for this effort here, you've got to leave it outside. You've got to do that. So I'll end with this. You know, the moms need to support the cops that want to get this done, and there are a lot of cops that want to get it done, believe it or not, and they're all not members of LEAP. You know, the cops need to support those who just want the right to enjoy cannabis. Those who just want to enjoy cannabis need to support those who come to this place from a medical perspective. Those who come to this place from a religious perspective. And the many different places we come from, we have to support each other. Keep the momentum going and share what's happening here in Washington and Colorado, not just with other states in the union, but we're already beginning to see what's happening outside of this country in other countries, like in Central America, with Uruguay. The move that you're seeing in Uruguay is because of what happened here. Here. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
In between the blues, there are good days and bad days, with everything and nothing to lose. While the setting sun never sits, and the night has no limits. The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grass fire, my DNA needs THC.
Grass fire in a world at yours. That's the way this fire burns. Like a grass fire.
In the unnatural society, been trying to maintain, while the sane appear to be clearly insane, with no way to explain. Outlasting the great lie, a sparking spark does my mind. Grass fire, pulling the sky, breathing in sativa's design.
Grass fire in a world at yours. That's the way this fire burns. It's a grass fire.
The void between freedom and free, dealing with the unnatural reality. A need to see, a need to be. Grass fire, my DNA needs THC. Dreaming of long times past, all that those times brought. Looking to the heart of tomorrow. Grass fire in a world that yearns. That's the way this fire burns.
He's a hit after him fast rallies and a kick after him stalk too. Strutting his fudge and brownies that he wants to share with you. 'Cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. 'Cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Truck. give a sweetness to the brew, 'cause he's the candy man. A sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. He's the candy man. A sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Do the strut. The candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Woo! He's the candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Take it away.
Right.
300 medical marijuana cigarettes on there, and I smoke 10 to 12 per day.
And without thinking twice, 60-year-old Irvin Rosenfeld sparks up a joint. And he can, because he's one of only 4 people in the entire country who receives medical marijuana directly from the federal government.
I mean, that's my prescription. And then here's the government label.
Rosenfeld fought for 10 years to get this federal prescription for a rare bone disease causing chronic pain. The collective fight, though, has a new face. Fort Lauderdale attorney and activist Norm Kent is now the head of NORML, or the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. His fight began back in 1971 at Hofstra University.
Nassau County Police raided our dormitories and arrested 35 students for smoking pot. I was outraged, infuriated.
And Kent has kept that intensity for 40 years. His first major legal victory? In 1982, he sued the state of Florida for spraying the deadly herbicide paraquat on marijuana fields. With a doctor's permission to ease effects of lymphoma, Kent is a self-proclaimed pot smoker, but he says it's more than just lighting up. This is about civil rights.
It's not just a drug war. It's a war against individual sovereignty, personal freedom, the ability of a human being to exercise dominion over his being.
The states of Colorado and Washington legalized the use of marijuana, and since then, Kent says the national fight for legal marijuana, medicinal or decriminalizing it, has intensified. There are hundreds of NORML chapters now and more than 500 lawyers fighting the fight.
America will recognize that responsible adults have the right to consume cannabis, and the laws will protect them instead of prosecute them.
And Norm's been fighting the fight for a long time as an attorney and also as a goodwill ambassador for medical cannabis. This has saved my life. Okay, without it, if I were still alive, I'd be homebound. I'd be a drain on society.
Keith Jones, NBC6, South Florida.
And the earth is our mother, and the land is her flesh, and the water is her milk, and the oil is her blood, and we are her children. In this land we come from, of this earth we're made of, with us as future ancestors, given responsibilities to live. We are the future we bring. If we don't take care of the land, how can the land take care of us? Save the sky and air we breathe. Today is time to remember tomorrow and the reality of we reap what we sow. The reality of land and life is in the seed. Seed has memory of life. Wild seed memory, keeping alive, up close, face to face with the destroyer and their synthetic seed without memory. Toxic plant poison in earth and mind, disregarding well-being for maximizing profits, abandoning the children to massive debt, making the price of freedom unaffordable at the expense of the many for the benefit of the few. Like a spreading mad human disease, chaos in minds with liars' promises, seeding old fears with new fears, life in the world of the money man. It's time to think our way out of what we believed our way into. How can we show respect to life if we don't use our common sense? Wild seed, life seeding life, and the earth is our mother, and the land is her flesh, and the water is her milk, and the oil is her blood, and we are her children.
American farmers are losing their farms at a frightening rate. For generations, this land and the occupations that it provided were handed down from father to son. And over the years, laws passed by legislators have eroded this heritage. The government and our nation's banking system are slowly becoming this country's sole farm owners. So in order to turn the tide, the American farmer needs a successful cash crop. Now, hemp is a plant that's proven to be versatile in creating over 50,000 products, from cloth and paper to fuel and medicine. And when prohibition was leveled against liquor, it was still legal to grow corn and grapes for other purposes. Now, this should be true of hemp. Return our roots to America and help re-legalize hemp.
Prohibition of any kind does not stop illicit behavior, it drives it underground.
I really think that the majority of Republicans are classical liberals. I'm a classical liberal. Less government, best government.
Abraham Lincoln said that.
The laws against marijuana are causing more trouble and harm to our society than drug abuse itself.
I saw the utter failure after 20 years of police work of this policy in our society.
We just need to end the war on drugs as being totally ineffective and devastating and more of a problem than the drug problem itself.
Not once do I remember responding to a call of domestic violence and that person being under the influence of marijuana.
We need to measure the effectiveness of our nation's drug policy by harm reduction, not by how many people do we lock up.
It's never going to be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, get behind the wheel of a car. It's never going to be legal to smoke pot, become impaired, do harm to others. We need to stop arresting 1.8 million people a year in this country on drug-related crime. We now have 2.3 million people behind bars, highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. We're spending too much money.
My friends in Europe tell me a society has to make a choice: tolerate alternative lifestyles or build more prisons. And then they always follow up by saying, and you Americans have more people in prison than anybody else on the planet.
It's not drug abuse that is causing this devastation. It is prohibition.
Cannabis should not be illegal. Cannabis has been here for centuries, doing no harm and oftentimes good, often being used as a medicine throughout the centuries.
But we have decided to make a war on drugs basically because by making a war on drugs, politicians can collect votes.
Since 1999, I have advocated legalizing marijuana. Control it, regulate it, tax it, make it like alcohol. In any category, marijuana is safer than alcohol.
And either we're inherently evil people that should be locked up, or there's something wrong with our legal system, and we've got to take the crime out of the equation when it comes to drug policy.
In our lifetimes, Russia is not going to recover from its monetary collapse. That's what's facing the United States. The good news is that we can fix this.
This is called Head Full of Pictures. This is a song for a time of war. When has there not been a time of war? Just came home with a head full of pictures and I can't say. They wake me up screaming in the middle of the night, make them go away, and I might start drinking and I might not stop. I might cross over that line, I just want to get drunk, stay that way all the time. Now I'm walking around full of pictures and you don't wanna know, hanging in the air right in front of my face, everywhere I go, and I might start joking and I might not stop, I might cross over that line, I just wanna get numb, and stay that way all the time. Nobody should have pictures in the head like I do. Nobody should have pictures in the head like me. Give them back to the people that wanted this war. I don't want to see them anymore. Now I'm living my life with a head full of pictures from now on, and I can't make love to the world anymore because they're too strong, and I might get crazy and I might not stop, I might cross over that line, and I might do something I might regret sometime. Gave me this head full of pictures, well I think I know, some big shot sitting in a padded chair, where the money's all flow, and I might start thinking and I might get smart, I might cross over that line, and I might do something about it sometime. Nobody should have pictures in the head like I do, nobody should have pictures in the head like me. Give it back to the people that wanted this war. I don't want to see them anymore.
And so if you or a loved one needs some help finding a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit anywhere from the East Coast out to Hawaii and points in between in the legal medical marijuana states, then we have a referral for you. Call us at 503-235-4606. If you are outside of the Portland area, you can call our toll-free number at 1-800-723-0188. That's 1-800-723-0188. We have doctors and medical professionals who are ready to help qualified patients get their medical marijuana permits all over the United States. If you have any of those conditions there, then our doctors can definitely help. We'll be proud to do it. I want to remind our Oregon viewers that we have a new sponsored petition that's out there, and we're working on those. You can find out more about our political work at crrh.org. That's crrh.org, or at our web portal that will take you to all of our websites at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. We're out of time. We're going to go back to some final moments of music from John Cornett and Jan Sue Hurst. Thank you, Casper. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Casper.
Thank you.
Well, here's a hit at the hemp stomp rally, and a hit at the hemp stomp too. Such a hit for Jan Brownies, and he wants to share with you, 'cause he's the candy man. The sugar shaking bugs making brownie baking son of a gun. He's got a cannabis recipe, coconut